Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Suzanne Peterson, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Captain Lisa Batchelor. We warmly welcome the Department of Defence Capability Acquisitions and Sustainment Group delegation. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching this broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record that they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Lance Corporal Sylvester John Frost. Sylvester Frost was born on the 26th of March 1896 in Tumut, New South Wales. Affectionately known as Syl, he was the eldest of 15 children, born to local grazier Frederick Frost and his wife Margaret. He received his education at Wagragabilly Public School near Gundagai and spent his childhood in the region. After completing his education, he went on to become a farmer. Syl Frost enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 8th of August 1915. He was assigned to reinforcements of the 4th Battalion and began a short period of training in Australia. He embarked for active service from Sydney in late December on board the troopship Medic. Private Frost arrived in Egypt in early January 1916 and continued training with his unit. In February, he contracted influenza and was sent to hospital in Heliopolis to recover. He returned to his battalion in March and was with them for just 2 weeks before he began suffering from tonsillitis. He was sent to the 3rd Australian General Hospital in Cairo and remained there until July, when he was sent to England. There, he joined the sanitary section of his battalion while he convalesced. He returned to active service in August, joining his unit in the front lines of the Somme Valley in northern France. He took part in his first major battle of the war at Mouquet Farm, which was a key position on the ridge extending from the ruined village of Pozières. The cellars of the former farm had been incorporated into German defences, making it a dangerous objective for advancing troops. Though casualties from the offensive were dangerously high, Syl Frost made it through unscathed. After the battle, he wrote to his father, "Dear Dad, I'm still going strong. Since my last letter, we have been in the trenches. We have had a rough time, and I'm glad to be out of the trenches for a few days' spell. I was not so nervous under fire as I thought I would be, but I confess I did not like the German shell fire. It was nerve-wracking." Following the carnage of Pozières and Mouquet Farm, the 4th Battalion was moved to the comparatively quiet Belgian front. They remained there until late October, returning to the Somme just in time to spend the bitterly cold winter in the trenches. Like many others, the difficult conditions of trench life took its toll on Frost's health. He became ill with influenza in January of 1917 and was sent to hospital behind the lines. He rejoined his unit at the end of the month and fought as the Germans retreated to the fortified Hindenburg Line. By April, the enemy had reached the French village of Bullecourt, which was incorporated into their new front line. Australian units attacked the village on the 11th of April, suffering over 3,000 casualties in one day. Private Frost took part in the second attempt to break the line at Bullecourt the following month. During the fighting on the 8th of May, he was hit by shrapnel and buried alive by the force of the blast. His comrades dug him out, but the experience damaged his lungs. He was sent to hospital for recovery and did not rejoin his unit until June of 1917. Frost continued serving with the 4th Battalion in Belgium until September, when he was granted a brief period of leave. He rejoined his comrades later in the month before taking part in the bitter fighting at the Ypres salient at Menin Road in September and Broodsienda in early October, when he became ill. He was sent to the 39th General Hospital at Le Havre and remained there until December, when he returned to his unit. Later that month, he was promoted to Lance Corporal. When the German spring offensive began on the 21st of March 1918, Frost returned to the front from leave, arriving a week later. In early April, his unit was initially sent to Amiens, but along with the rest of the 1st Australian Division, was quickly rushed north to defend the strategically important town of Hazebrouck. The men spent most of their time fortifying their trenches to hold off the German advance, anticipating the impending enemy barrage. On the 15th of April 1918, Frost was working with a party of stretcher bearers in the front lines when the enemy began to shell his position. A sergeant from the 4th Battalion was lying wounded in no man's land, and Frost's party was sent out to retrieve him. When they reached their comrade, a German machine gun opened fire, wounding Frost in the stomach. He was taken to the 15th Casualty Clearing Station for treatment, but his wounds proved too severe. He died 5 days later, on the 20th of April, 1918. News of his death reached Australia shortly after, where Syl was remembered in the local newspaper as a general favourite and a bright, handsome lad. His family later posted a memorial notice in the Gundagai Independent. We pictured his safe returning. We longed for the clasp of his hand. But God has postponed that meeting. It will be in a better land. Lance Corporal Sylvester Frost was 22 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lance Corporal Sylvester John Frost, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, Thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.